Hi everybody, and welcome to part 4 of Home is Where the Haunt Is pillow. And so today we're going to be working on some of the pieced blocks. So there was, the first half was sort of the applique blocks, and then the second half was a lot of like piecing in the hoop, like paper piecing I should say, in the hoop. So we're going to start today with the square and the square. Now you're actually going to make 2 of these. And then we're also going to do, so here's square and the square. So I've got my little baggies with my kits in them here for each square. My square and the square. And this is for one, and I've got the other one out because we're going to make 2 of those. And I'll probably just do one on the video and I'll make the other one off video. And then there's a broom block that we'll do. And this one's pieced, and then it has some applique on it and a little bit of chenilling too. And then the other ones that we're going to do, there's a couple little border blocks, and you don't have to do any piecing or anything. We just need to quilt those. So these are going to be the quilt type. We're going to use the method 2 for the quilting, because these are already cut to the right size. So I'll show you how to quilt these 2 little border blocks. So that's what we'll also do. And then in the live video, of course, we did the flying geese, and I forgot what the other one was. What was it? The flying geese and the mummy block? I think it was the mummy block. Yeah, the mummy block and the flying geese. So anyway, so let's go ahead and get started with this block. This is a fun one. It's very simple. And then this is one of the ones that I chose to go ahead and make a different quilting pattern. So like I said last time, and we've talked about that, there was a lot of quilting designs in this pillow. So I actually cut it down so that there was only 4, so you didn't have to buy so many quilting designs. So the square and a square was supposed to be like one of the wavy ones, so I chose to do that one in one of the Halloween ones. So we're going to do that in Halloween 4 instead of the one that they originally did. So we're going to get the Halloween 4 for this. So to get this started, the first thing of course we're going to do, so here's my little pieces here. We needed a piece for the center of the block, so that's this purple, and I think it's about 3.5 by 3.5. And then we needed some middle squares. And whoops, those are these, sorry, the green ones. So we needed some of these, and these are 2 by 3. And then we need the outside squares, which are 2.5 by 4. Okay, so we needed 4 of these for each block. So there was 8 of these and 8 of these and 2 of the purple. Okay, because we're going to make 2 of those. Okay, so we got the fabrics there, and then let's go ahead and get our design up and running here. So we're going to go over here, and I chose Halloween 4. And this block, you trim it. Let me check the trimming instructions to make sure I get it correct. You trim it to 4.5 by 4.5. So our finished quilting design will be 4 by 4. So let's choose the, go to embroidery, hopefully, if I can get my finger to work there. And I'm going to go to my quilting designs. And I have them all on my stick. I just keep them all on here because I use them so often. And this one is called Halloween 4. So I'm going to use Halloween 4 for this one, someplace. H, let's see, F, G, we're going close. Here we go, Halloween 4. And then it's going to be the 4 by 4 design. So I'm going to go into the embroidery designs. I'm going to use block by block. Remember, we're not doing this all pieced the whole top. We're doing this block by block in my PES files. And I'm going to go to the 4 by 4 design. Let's see, where is it here? 6 by 6, must be getting close. Is this it right here maybe? Yeah, here it is, 4 by 4. Okay, this is the one that has, it's cute. It's got like little candy corn flowers and stuff on it, so it's very cute. Okay, so there's my 4 by 4 quilting design. So we got that in there first. Then I'm going to set it, and then I'm going to go back and hit add, and now I'm going to go back and get my blocks. So I'm going to go back to my stick and go to Home is Where the Haunt Is, embroidery files, and then we're going to go find the square and a square. Here it is right here. Okay, so we're going to do square and a square and hit set and embroidery. So this one is going to be centered in the block. Okay, So let's see, I think we got it. I think that's the correct one. We better check to make sure that I got the right one. So let me see if I did. Let's go back a block here. Make sure I got the right one. I'm pretty sure I did. Let's just delete it. We'll just make sure. Edit, move to the center. Okay. And then I'm going to go add. Just make sure I got the right one. Sometimes I get the wrong block. So let's see. Home is where the haunt is. Embroidery files, PES. I think that's the only one there was, right? Yeah. Oh yeah, it does say 5x7 on here. Yeah, I thought it was strange that it said 5x7, but it is just slightly bigger than 4x4. Obviously, it's 4x8 by 4x8, so we have to put it in a 5x7 hoop. So that's the correct one. Hit set. It's in the center of my block. Okay, and then I'm going to hit embroidery. So now we're ready, and of course the first piece, pieces are going to be the quilting, and I believe I quilted this in white. So I'm going to go ahead and just put my white embroidery thread in. So put them over here to the, move over here to the machine. I'm just going to go ahead and put in my white thread, and I've got white, just my standard embroidery thread in my machine. I happen to use pre-wound, so I have my white pre-wound bobbin in there, and I have hooped my 5x7 hoop with my no-show mesh stabilizer already. So that's the only thing that's in my hoop is my no-show mesh. I'm going to go ahead and put this in my machine. And then the first step, as we have done quite a few of these now, the first step of the quilting part is going to be the placement line for the batting. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to sew out step number 1. I'm just going to leave the white thread in. And I'm grabbing my little chunk of batting over here, since I didn't cut my little squares of batting. It saves so much time if you don't have to cut the batting. I'm just not I don't like to cut very well. Okay, so here is our placement line for our batting. And then we're going to put this in here and cover that line. I'm going to leave my white thread in there. Okay, and I'm just going to kind of hold it in place and stitch the tack down line, which would be step number 2. Now this block seems like it has a lot of steps, but it's because it's got the piecing parts and there's lots of little outlines you have to do. So it's very easy. It's going to go around this one twice. So you can see, okay, it's a nice bright sunny day today. I always do these videos usually on a Sunday afternoon because I'm home for a while and it's quiet here, so so I like to do these on a Sunday. Alright, so this is going to cut, and then we're going to trim the batting. So these block by block designs that Kimberbell has have 2 methods. So this is method number 1, when you're actually doing when the fabric has not been trimmed to the exact size. And so then today we're also going to get to do a couple with method number 2, when the fabric has been cut to the correct size. So we'll do those in the border blocks at the end. Alright, so I'm just going to trim all the way around, close to stitches. Boy, I didn't do very well on that one, did I? I have a little trouble trimming when I'm doing videos because I don't like to take the hoop out of the machine so you can see me trimming. But this one, let's get the little mess out of there. There we go. Okay, so then the third step in all of these designs then is going to be the fabric placement line. Okay, so this one's going to be a piece design, and so I'm just going to put this on here so I kind of have an idea, but we're actually going to skip through the next step because we have to come back later and do the quilting. I just like to put this one around so I have an idea where, this is basically going to be our trimming line. Okay, so I usually just put it on. So now we need to skip through, and then we're going to come back and quilt it at the end because this one is going to be a piece block. So that's what's different about these, but I usually like to still put the fabric placement line on just so that I know where the outside edge of the fabric's going to be. Okay, so let's go ahead and then we'll come back to it later. So I'm going to go hit my little button down here that fast forwards. Okay, and I'm going to go down then. We're going to skip the quilting and go back and do it in a little bit. Okay, then we're going to go to the little, it's going to give us our little road map for our piecing. Okay, so this one I think did have the little outside line. Can you see it? This one does actually have it. So I wouldn't have had to done that step number 3. So I may skip it in the next one. Some of them don't always put this line on here, but this one did. See how it's going over that same line? So we could have skipped that. So I would have done step number 1 and step number 2, and then skipped 3, 4, and 5 for right now, and then gone on to this step, which is the road map. That's going to show us where to put our fabrics down. We just mostly need to get our batting in there. So you can do it either way. Like I said, some of them don't always do the outline. They do the outline of the road map, but not this outside piece. So this one did do it. So I wouldn't have had to sew out step number 3 of the quilting. So you can do either way, whichever works for you. But now we've got our little road map on there, so we know where all of our block pieces go. Okay, so I think I'm just going to leave my white in. There's a variety of colors in this block, and I'm actually going to quilt it in white, so I think I'm just going to leave my white in for the whole thing. So the next step then is going to be the first step of the actual piecing of the block. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to lay down, we're going to start in the center. So the first piece of these, paper piece blocks always are started face up. So I'm going to lay this over the inside, and this little, I don't know if you can see this very well, but this little picture right here shows you where they're going first. So we're going 1, 2, and then we're going to go around 3, 4, 5 and do the green pieces, and then we're going to do the white and black pieces around the outside edge. Okay, now I have a tendency to kind of look at this picture for the most part. I don't really read, I don't really watch a lot of this because I find it confusing because there's so many steps, and I've done so many of these now. I know exactly where I'm going if I look at this little road map, and it has it all numbered for me. Okay, so sometimes I have to look at these just to make sure I'm getting the right color in the right place. All right, so here's our purple. We're going to lay our purple right side up in the center there. And the next step is going to be the tack down line and the trimming line. So we're going to sew that, and it's going to sew across the top, and then I think the next ones are going to be the green pieces. So once they've done this tack down and trimming line, then what you do is the next step will always be to trim that fabric that you laid down close to the stitches, okay? And then the next step will be to lay the part number 2, which is going to be one of the green pieces, along that line there, and match up the raw edges, okay? And then the next step is going to stitch this down to the top. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and lay that there, and I kind of just centered it on the white line, so I know that it's, I don't know if you can see that too well, so that I know that it's going to be centered well, and it's going to be covering this little triangle right here. Okay, all right, so then I'm going to lay that face down. So these are always going to be face down, so this is flip and fold. Okay, so we're going to put the 2 pieces together just like we'd sew it together traditionally. And then we're going to stitch the line, and then we will flip it over. So it's the same procedure each time, and we've done quite a few of these in the past. So and I'm going to flip this over and get a nice crease. I just finger press it really nicely with my fingernail. Get a nice crease there, okay? And then the next step is going to be over here, and we're going to put this side on. So I'm going to go ahead, make sure this is nice and creased, and then we're going to sew, it's going to sew along this side, and we'll put the second piece on. And this is also going to be a green piece. So we just do one piece at a time. It's very easy. We're going to trim, you know, after it does the line, then we have to trim the fabric close to the stitches. And up to, I'm just going to trim up to the green. Okay, and then we're going to lay the raw edges together. Make sure you're kind of, this line goes from here to here. Make sure your fabric is pretty centered on that line. Raw edges together, right sides together. And then I'm going to stitch the next step, which will sew those two pieces together. So this is a very easy block. It has quite a few pieces in it. And we're going to do a couple of these. In the live class we did the flying geese, so that one actually had the most pieces. This one is less pieces. So okay, so then we're going to flip this one over. So this was piece number 3, and put a nice crease on it, and then it's going to move down and it's going to go across the bottom here. Okay, and this will be piece number 4, so we're going to do our tack down and trimming line here. And then we'll trim. Lots of times when I do the piecing, I just piece with a neutral thread, so whatever works for you. I just left the white because I was going to quilt it in white. Maybe, if I can get my, there we go. Get my scissors under there. It's always hard to trim in the hoop without removing. So I'm going to trim up close to the line here. It's also harder to trim on batting. My scissor tip likes to kind of get on the batting. I had a pair of scissors that I loved for this kind of piecing, and they're so dull now. I need to see if I can find somebody to sharpen them, but you can't get them anymore. And they were so nice because they had like a little curved line, a little curved tip, and you didn't catch your batting. So I really miss those scissors. They're so dull though, I can't cut fabric with them. Okay, so now we're going to do the same thing. I trimmed. We're going to lay our piece right side down and over that, center it over that stitching line. Okay, and then the next step we'll sew these together. So this is a pretty easy block. Whoops, looks like I unthreaded my machine, so we'll have to, whoops, second here. I'm going to needle up and down. Remember, needle up and down if something like that happens before you try to thread it. And then we'll back up to the beginning so that it will catch that beginning there. There we go. It's happier now. Yeah, so this one, I didn't realize this one did have that little outer border. Some of them don't, and so that's why I usually sew out number 3. But this one we wouldn't have had to. So it's nice. Okay, I'll look more closely on the next one to see, like the broom. Yeah, the broom one is the next one. I'll check to see if that one is on there, and if it is, we won't stitch that one out. Okay, so then we're going to do, again, I got this flipped over and then well creased, and now we're going to do the placement and trimming line again on the other side. So it's the same procedure for each side. Okay, so it makes it very easy. Once you kind of get the rhythm down, it goes along just very quickly. So I'm doing this video before we're doing the August Bench Buddies, and that class will be, one of them is a paper piece like this, and it has a lot of pieces. It has like 25 or 30 pieces in it, so that one is really fun to do. But you have to pay attention what you're doing, so you just have to kind of get into the rhythm. So it's good to do some of these simpler blocks before you do those big ones. Okay, so here's my line again. I'm going to take my last piece of green, and I'm going to center it over that line, and then I'm going to stitch down the last piece of green, and then we'll be moving on to the black and white check, or plaid. I guess it's plaid, isn't it? I'm going to lay this over. And I normally just finger press. You can use an iron on these. That is absolutely fine. But make sure you have one of the little ironing pads to set under here or to remove it from your machine every time. I normally get a good enough press by finger pressing. Especially with the batting, because the batting kind of holds the fabric in place. I often do press with an iron if I'm using just no-show mesh with no batting on it, because they want to kind of slide back because the no-show mesh doesn't hold it, but the batting, see, holds everything nice and firm. Okay, so then we're going to go across this way, and now we're ready to go. This is piece number 7 already. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, is it 6? No, it's 6. We're going to go this way, sorry. It's number 6. So it's going to go down across this way first. Jan can't count very well today, evidently. It is Sunday. I guess I don't need to count on Sunday. Alright, so then we're going to do the same thing. We're going to trim along that line. So this one I do have to take out so I can get to it. It's kind of angled. I'm just going to trim along that line. And where the little points join, sometimes there's a little bit of a stitch that sticks out a little bit, so just be careful when you're trimming there. And I'm going to put right sides together. We're going to make sure we center that nicely on that line. Put the raw edges together, and then I'm going to sew out the stitching line for that. And we'll go around the 4 corners of this. So this step, if you're kind of following along in the instructions, is actually on page 24, and it was like steps 24, 25, 26, 27. I don't really look at the book. I have a tendency to just kind of go with the flow with these, because I've done a lot of them now. Okay, so we're going to flip this over. Okay, and now it's going to go along this side, because this side is going to be the 7th piece. So it's going to go along this side up here. So then we'll do another placement and tack down line. I should say placement and trimming line. I'll get it. It was a T word. Don't mind me, guys. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to trim along that line. And this is going to have one of those ones, sometimes you'll get a little stitch in here and it's kind of hard to get under it, so you have to kind of loosen it a little bit where those little corners meet. And I'm going to kind of go up this way too. Okay. And then we're going to do the same thing with this one. Put them right sides together. I'm going to center it on that line that it made, so I have plenty of fabric. This one was ravelly. All these little ravels on there. Okay. And we're going to stitch out the sewing line along here. So you can see these are pretty simple. Once you get going on them, they're just the same rhythm, and you can really go to town on these. They're fun to do. I love to piece in the hoop. I'm going to learn to digitize these. I've digitized these for a long time, like probably 15 years, but I do them differently, and I do kind of like this method, so I'm going to learn to do these, some like this, just because it takes a step out that is nice. So I'm going to learn to digitize these too. Okay, so then I got this one flipped up. Now we're going to get ready for step number, I think this is 8. Got to go look back and look at my picture. Yep, number 8 I think down here. Yep, along this line right here. So it's going to do this side. And go down along this way. I've tried paper piecing traditionally, and I just really struggle with sewing on those lines on the papers. So I know some of you have done paper piecing. I know what I'm talking about, but I've never really done very well with that. So I do love paper piecing this way. And then you can make your own. If I learned to, I'd like to digitize them this way though. The reason I like it, I put a placement line in also. So like they combine 2 lines a placement and it's a placement and a trimming line. And I always had a placement line separate. And sometimes you would have just a little bit of a seam here. You could see the stitching. So this way you don't see that because you're sewing. Your trimming line is 1/4 of an inch where back or in front of where you're actually sewing. So I like that method. So I think that's something we're gonna do in software class, is we're gonna digitize our own blocks. And Dime has this wonderful new software. It's called Block People. It's not new, but they really are. They're going to have an event, and we're going to do it in September. For its Block Piecer, and they have a program, a software program that actually does this for you. And it's more done. It's done more like this method, and it is really cool. So I've been playing around with that software. So we're going to do the video or the virtual event. So we're going to flip this over. We're going to do the virtual event in September. I think it's at the end of September, and it's called Block Party. So we're going to do that. All right. So flip that over, and now we're getting ready for the last piece, and then it's going to go along this side. So I'm just going to kind of hold this so it won't flip over on me. All right. And we got our last piece here. I'm going to trim again. All right. I'm going to trim up here. That one has a little spot right there that I'm having trouble getting through. There it goes. So sometimes there's a little stitch like down here, you know, that did a couple of other pieces, and it'll kind of catch. So there we go. If I can get a hold of that one. There's just a little stitch right there. There we go. Can I go up this way? I'm just going to trim off a little bit. I could hardly reach, so hopefully that will be okay. All right, then we're going to put the last piece on. Again, you want to make sure you center on this line so that you have plenty of fabric. And they cut the pieces, you know, big enough. So that's what's nice about Kimberbell. They're always a little over, you know, you always have plenty of fabric, especially with the paper piecing, because that's when that's one of the things I really struggled was sewing on the papers, and then the fabric, I had to be so careful to get the fabric big enough, because, you know, it's always needs to be bigger than you think. So this Kimberbell always is very good about doing that, doing the big enough pieces. So okay. So we'll go ahead and flip this one over and finger piece it, or finger press it. And now it's going to go ahead and do the outline all the way around. And I do kind of watch this I normally don't have any trouble, especially if you finger pressed well and gotten all these little flippers finger pressed. I usually don't have any trouble, but I'm just going to make sure they're well pressed down. Okay. And then we're going to go ahead and it's going to sew the square around the outside edge. And this would also be a square that if you wanted to, this will be your trimming line. So if you want to, you could like sew this in a darker color, like black or something, so you could see it a little bit better. But I mean, the white, I can see it fine. So I'm just going to leave the white in. Sometimes I do that one in another color just so that it's a little bit more obvious. I'm not sure if they tell you to do that in the instructions or not. Let me look. No, it doesn't say anything, but that's sometimes what I do here. Like you might want to put this in black, or you could even put it in green or purple just so you could see it, because this is actually going to be our trimming line. Okay, so now we're not quite done yet, though. We need to quilt these. So now we're going to back up and hit the quilting here. So I'm going to go ahead and hit OK, and I'm going to just hit my little arrow here, and I'm going to back up. Whoops, sorry. It went back to the beginning, so I have to go forward down to the quilting, which is number 5. So it's always step number 5 is always the quilting. So I'm on step number 5, and now we're going to just go ahead and quilt this. Since it's all piece, now we can quilt it. Okay, so here we go. And this is going to be, and I'm just going to leave mine in the white. You can do them in any color. I went through and kind of wrote down, I brought my pillow home when I was getting ready to do my instructions, you know, check through my instructions, and I just wrote down what I used in the original one. So this one's going to be the little So this is a different quilting design than I did in my original sample. But I was just trying to make it so we didn't have to have so many quilting patterns, because Sweet Land of Liberty only had like 3, and this one they had like, I don't know, 8 or 9, so I just thought that was a lot. So I thought we could pare it down, and I decided on 4. So there was a border one, one's for the borders, and then there was the Chevron and Halloween 1 and Halloween 4. So there was 2 Halloween ones and the Chevron. So I thought that would give enough variety. This is going to look really cute. I love the little candy corns. And the other one had, this is for Halloween 1. Oh yeah, Halloween 1 is the one with the spider webs in it. And that would be cute in this one too. I just chose, I think I kind of split it up so that there was about even number of each one. So in the pillow top. So whichever you would like to do works for me. So just do what you want, what you want to do. So it's just about done. It doesn't take too long when it's only 4x4. And then what I'll do is I'm going to turn the camera off for a minute, and I'll do the second block because there's 2 of these. So you're going to do the exact same thing. So in this case, it does have the little outline around it in the roadmap. So you don't have to do step number 3. So just do step number 1 and 2 of the quilting, and then skip 3, 4, and 5, and then go on to the actual block, and then go back to step number 5. So I've kind of done that step number 3 in a lot of them, just because some of them don't do this with the pieced ones. So okay, so there is my little block. It's all ready to go, and I'm going to go ahead and turn the camera off, and I'm going to do my second block, and then we'll trim them both at the same time. Okay, I'll be back in a moment. Okay, so I've got my second block done. So here's my 2 blocks, and now we need to trim them. So in the instructions it says to use that placement line, or that tack down line that went all the way around, to trim with, and just trim with the rotary cutter. But honestly, I took my they're 4.5 by 4.5, and I just took my orange pop ruler and lined it up with those lines in my, I just centered those lines in my ruler, and I just used the ruler because I thought it was easier than just using a regular rotary cutter. So I'm just going to do that. I'm going to get those all lined up in there, because you can use that line to help you all the way around. And then I am going to, again, I'm left-handed, so I'm starting over here on the right. If you're right-handed, you're going to have your rotary cutter, and you're going to start over on the left, okay? So I'm going to, and I've got my Martelli roundabout here, because this really helps when you're trying to get these lined up. Okay, so I got that all lined up. I'm going to start like in a little bit and pull back into the corner, and then push forward to the other corner. Turn it around. So I just thought the pop rulers worked better here. That's why I'm doing it this way. I'm not always good with a regular ruler, and I love these little pop rulers. See, I did move that though, so we'll go back and get it lined back up again. I have a little trouble with the moving sometimes. I didn't grab the 6.5 inch square one. Sometimes if I have both of them, this is the other one that I did, yeah, okay. If I have 2 rulers in there, it's easier for me than just one. So I'll before I get the other one, I'll go grab my 6.5 inch ruler. I think I got it. There we go. It's just a little easier sometimes when you got 2 rulers to hang on to. Okay, so let's see if I got it. Did I get it all? I think so. I got a little spot. I need a new rotary blade. I go through a lot of blades because I cut a lot. I'm always afraid to put on a new one because they're so sharp, and I am not real good with a rotary cutter. Okay, so there's the first one. So let me go grab my 6.5 inch ruler. And so like I said, you can just do this. What they did is they just took, the regular rotary ruler with the rotary cutter and went along each line. But I just thought it's the size of one of the orange pop rulers, so I just did it that way. Let me grab my other ruler. the 6.5 by 6.5 will fit in over the top, and this actually makes it a little easier for me because then it doesn't slide around so much. Just a little bit more to grab onto. So we'll put them in there. So I'm going to go ahead and get this one lined up. This is the second one that I did while the video was paused, and then I'm going to go ahead and lay this down. So then it just gives me a little bit more to hang on to. Get that. There we go. Okay. I usually use 2 rulers. I don't know why I just grabbed the one, but I did. Okay. Do the same thing. I kind of start and then pull back into the, I start up a little bit and pull back into the corner. I think I moved just a little bit. There we go. Sometimes it's a little hard when you have the no-show mesh on, that it slides a little bit. So that's what I'm experiencing. It's the no-show mesh. It's a little easier on tearaway. Doesn't move around so much. Okay, so there we go. Let's see if we get how we do with this one. There we go. So there's my 2 square and a square blocks. So that's the first one we'll do in this video. The square and the square, and then the next one we're going to do is going to be the broom. So the broom is going to be done in a similar fashion. However, it does have some chenille in it, so that'll be kind of fun. It'll be something different. I have to get my little chenilling tools out here, and then we'll do some chenille also. So I will be right back. I'm going to move the camera back, and then we'll set up and we'll do the broom. Okay, so this is the broom block, and we're going to start out the same way in that we're going to do some piecing first, and then this one is a little different because you have to piece. I'm going to look at the instructions here so I remember. So we're going to piece, and you can see that here's the piecing, and now this one does have the little outside line, so we won't have to do step number 3 in the quilting. But I'm going to go ahead and look forward. Okay, so here's the piecing, and the piecing ends down here when you get all the little, there's like little squares and then a couple little strips. But we're going to want to quilt it before we put the little broom on. So we're actually going to have to quilt like in the middle of the block this time, and then go ahead and do the broom part. So this one's going to be a little bit different. Because it doesn't really tell you in the instructions how to do this, so I'm glad that I'm doing these videos because it is a little different, because I don't want the quilting to be on top of my broomstick and my chenilling, of course, so we need to stop in the middle of the block after the piecing's over, and then do the quilting, and then go ahead and finish the applique part. So this one's going to be kind of a different one. Alright, and then this one, I used the Chevron, and I think I did this one in white also. Yeah, I did the quilting, I think, in white on this one as well. Yeah. So we're going to do this one with the Chevron pattern. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and get our design up first. So we're going to go get our Chevron quilting pattern. And this was Chevron 1. And this one I did with the vertical, so the chevron's going up and down this way. So let's go find that one first. So let's get the Chevron 1. I have lots of designs in here. In fact, there's some I don't have in here yet. I need to update my stick. Okay, so here's Chevron 1. And then we need it to be the 4x4 one. So again, this is going to be still a square block. So I've got mine in my 5x7 hoop. So here it is. So then there's one that's going horizontal, and there's one that's going vertical. So I want this one to be vertical. So I'm going to choose this one instead. So the chevrons are going up and down. Okay, and then I'm going to hit set, and then I'm going to go ahead and add, and then we're going to go get the broom pattern. So let me go get that one. And let's see, home is where the haunt is. And let's go find the broom. Here it is. Broom right here. Okay. And then hit set and embroidery. Okay, so we're going to start out the same way, and you can see I have all my little pieces laid out here. So these are the pieces we're going to use first, and I am going to kind of look at the instructions to make sure I get these little squares in the right spot. So we're going to have little squares over on the right, and then we're going to have a smaller piece of orange that's going to be kind of one of the bigger stripes, and then this one's going to be where the broom's going to be, is this purple. Okay, so I'll kind of watch the instructions, and then this part here is going to be our broom and our chenilling. Okay, so that's the yellow pieces, and there's 4 pieces of that. All right, so let's go ahead, and of course the first thing we're going to do is get our batting down. So the first step is going to be the batting placement line. So I've just got all my little fabrics laying over here, so you can see. We'll do our placement. Whoops, evidently I unthreaded my machine again. So we'll thread the machine again. I have a tendency when I'm going to needle up and down before I thread it. We'll back up and try again. There we go. I'm just about down to the end of this white, and I'm just putting my white in. I still have my regular bobbin thread in the bobbin, no shamesh in the hoop, and I'm getting down to the end of the spool, and sometimes it unthreads a lot when it's a little tight, you know, when it gets down to the core of the spool. So, all right, so now I got to get my batting. I'm going to get our batting piece here. I've got a little chunk I'm going to take off here because it's kind of in the way. And we'll use this for one of the blocks we're going to do for the border. It's a little skinny piece here. We'll use that later. All right. So we'll put this on here over the placement line, and we're going to get our batting on here. Because I remember there was more instructions. I did this pillow came out first. And I did this one after I did Sweet Land of Liberty, I think, actually. Sweet Land of Liberty had a little bit more instructions about the quilting in it. It had a whole page with like quilting instructions, and this one had like nothing. So you kind of had to look at the design and decide where the quilting needed to be. So this was one that was a little different. The quilting kind of had to be in the center. All right, so I'll go ahead and trim my batting. And they also didn't tell you that block that we did in the last video, you know, the bugs and hisses one, that you had to move it down. Because they've started putting that in the instructions, because a lot of people do this quilting in the hoop, you know. And so they've started putting that in the instructions now, when they need to be moved. So it isn't so easy to miss it. Okay. Otherwise you got to go look at the cutting instructions. Okay, so there's our trimmed batting. All right, so down the next step then is going to be to skip down to where the paper piecing is. So we're going to skip steps 3, 4, and 5, which is the quilting. And then here is our little road map, and it also has the little outline, so I didn't have to do step 3. Okay, so we'll do that one next. I'm just going to leave my white thread in and do our little road map. So I have to look at my instructions. The piecing is very simple, but I want to make sure I get the fabrics in the right spot. Sometimes I have to look at the instructions, at least for the fabrics, because some of this one had a lot of little pieces, so I didn't want to get them out of order. All right, so it did do the little outline which we need. And then it's going to do the inside little road map part. Rather warm out here this afternoon. I have all the fans running. The sewing room is really, really nice. It's very warm out here in the morning because it's on the east, so the sun comes in the window. But by the afternoon, it's actually a little bit better, but it's still kind of warm out here today. So it's nice because at least the sun's not glaring in on me now. There used to be a tree behind me, like to the south. There used to be a tree back there that really shaded this room, and it made it so much nicer, but the tree came down in the derecho, unfortunately. So okay, so here's our little road map. So the next piece, the first piece is going to be at the bottom right here. So we're going to start on this one. And so remember, just like the other one, the first piece is always right side up. And I think they did this one, and it doesn't matter. You can do it this way or this way. I think I'm going to lay it horizontally. So you want to make sure that you cover up that whole area. And then the reason I like that line there, see, then I know that's where the trimming line is going to be. So that's why I always want to make sure I have that, so I can get it all covered too. And you need to cover it out over here, see. All right. So now the next step will be the trimming. I'm sorry, the trimming and tack down line. So it's going to sew that down. I didn't have it quite up high enough, so I scooted it up a little. Okay, and then we'll trim along that line. So yeah, this block was a little different. I remember when I did it the first time, I'm like, oh, well, I don't want my quilting over my little broom, so obviously we need to stop after the piecing part and go and quilt it. So it just you have to look at the block. Okay, so I got that trimmed, and now I'm going to do, I think it's the orange next. So we're going to put the orange, again, the second piece then will be right sides down, center it over that line that's sewed. Okay, and then we will sew the stitching line for those two blocks together. And I think the next one is the purple, the darker purple. This was a fun block. This one got to do a little chenille. I like doing chenille. I've got a new tool for the chenilling, so we're going to see how it works today. I haven't tried it yet. Okay, so we're going to flip this over and give it a good finger press. And then it's going to sew another one of the trimming and tack down lines. So as you can see, they give you plenty of fabric. It's nice to have plenty of fabric with paper piecing. That's the part that I always struggled with, was I never seemed to have enough fabric. But this, they always give you plenty. All right. I'm going to pull this back, and then I'm going to trim against that line. Like that. Okay, and then the next one, is the purple. So we're going to lay the purple right sides together with the orange, center on that line there. And this line is important because, again, we're going to trim on that later, and so you want to make sure you got plenty of fabric over that that's going to cover that line. Okay. And then this is going to sew these two together. And the last one is the gray. So this is like page 32 of the instructions. Okay, so we're going to flip this one up. Okay, and then it's going to do another one of those trimming and tack down lines. Okay, so now we're going to pull this back and we're going to trim this one. And then the last one is, this little piece of gray. So we're going to put this right sides together. Lay it down there. And then we'll do the stitching line. Boy, this one was ravelly too. I cut a lot of scraps. I have lots of scraps from Kimberbell now. So I cut a lot of these little things out of scraps. And I finally organized my scraps in like a scrapbooking drawer unit that had clear drawers so that I could see what colors they were, and I put like all the reds together and pinks, and I put everything together by color. So oh my gosh, I can actually like cut, and it doesn't take me hours to find the fabric. Alright, so we're going to flip this up. That was the best thing I ever did because I do a lot of cutting. I make a lot of little projects and I do a lot of cutting. Okay, so there is the last one. So now the next one is going to go along this side, and we're going to put over the narrower piece, which is this orange. it's going to go all down along the left side there. And then we'll trim. This is a fun one. I really like this, and it has a real cute little chenille base on the broom. So when I first saw this block, I thought, oh gosh, that's a big block, but it's not. It's only 4.5 inches. You know, it's finished is 4 inches. Okay, so then we trimmed up along the edge there, and now we're going to put this narrower orange piece on first. So just a second here, I got some ravels on it. I'm going to put it again, gonna get it centered on that stitching line, and make sure that we're over the line here and line here. Okay, and then right sides together, raw edges together, and then we're going to stitch those two together. Okay. There's our orange, so we're going to flip this one over, and then we just got to put the purple on. We're going to put this piece of purple on next. So this will be the base for our broom. So when I saw the pillow originally, I thought this was a couple of blocks, but it's actually just one. They just pieced it. Thought that was kind of neat. Okay, and now it's going to do the placement line and the trimming line over here. So we'll be ready for our other piece of purple. Okay, so we'll trim this one. Along the line there. Oops, caught my batting a little bit there. That's okay. Alright, then we're going to lay the purple down. Right sides together. Get the raw edges even. And then we'll stitch that stitching line. And I'll stitch those two together, and then it's going to do the tack down all the way around, and then we'll be ready for the quilting, because the last steps are going to be the applique part. So we need to get it quilted before we do the broom. Okay, so let me pull this back so I can see what I'm flipping here. Flip this over. Press along that line. I like that purple. It's one of my favorite fabrics. I don't know why I like that kind of, it's kind of a fuchsia purple. It's not really purple and it's not really pink. Okay, oops, second here. Looks like my thread's going to come unthreaded again. When they get, it's a little bit tight, I'm just about done with the spool. You know, it's funny how the spools, you think it's going to be, oh, I'm going to run out. Well, then you know what? It just lasts forever, doesn't it? Unless you really need it to last, and then it doesn't. Okay, so now it's going to go all the way around the outside edge. Just watch your little edges. Usually it does pretty well. They kind of digitize the tack down line so that you don't have trouble with things flipping over usually. So, okay. So there's the tack down line. Now that was in the instructions. That was in the instructions here was step number 28, and on the machine it's going to be, I think it's going to be 17, because you know we have to add 5 for the quilting. So we're going to go ahead then, and we're going to back up, and we need to quilt this now. So we're going to back up to step number 5 and quilt this, and then we're going to come back to number 18. I'm ready for the broom handle. And you know, I don't remember what color I used. I didn't write it in. Isn't that weird? I know what color I used for the broom. So I guess we'll just use black. How about that? Or gray. One or the other. We'll use one of those two. Okay, so I could use brown, but I don't think they actually called for a brown in the pattern. I was going to look at let's look at the thread colors real quick. I don't think they actually called for a brown. No, so I must have used gray or black for my handle. We'll pick one of those colors. We'll see. Okay, so now we're going to back up. So I'm going to hit the negative positive needle down here. Okay, And then we're going to back up, and we need to go back up to number 5 because we need to quilt this. And I'm just going to leave the white thread in. Oops. It's thinking here. Get back to number 5. Okay, so there's the quilting. So now we're ready for the quilting. So I'm going to hit OK, and then we're going to quilt it. And then we have to go back forward again so that we can move on with our broom. So this one was a little different. You kind of had it quilted in the middle. And it really didn't, that I could see, it didn't really tell you anything about that. So when I started looking at it, I'm like, well, I've got to quilt this before I put the broom on, because I didn't want to quilt over my broom. So it's going to do, I like the chevrons up and down, aren't those neat? Going back and forth. And I just did it in the white. So let's see, maybe, I'm not sure if I want black or gray for the handle. What do you think? I got a dark gray or a black. I don't know. Maybe we'll do the dark gray. I didn't write it down. I don't remember what I used. I didn't write it down. I usually write all the numbers in, the color numbers in. Okay, so there's our quilted block. So now we need to go back to step number, well, it says 13 in the book, but it would be 18 because remember you have to add 5. So we're going to go back. We're going to hit the negative positive needle again down there, and then we're going to go back down to number 18. Now we're going to do our broom. It moves around a lot. You can't push it until it's done moving, otherwise it gives you the little little time. So you could put a brown in here too, but it didn't really call for brown in the instructions, so I don't have any brown. So we're going to make it either black or gray. So I don't know, maybe gray or black. What do you know? I think I did mine in black actually. Looks like I might have done it in black. I don't have the picture of my pillow here, so I think we're going to do black. Because then there's another little bit here down at the bottom here, so I think I did them both in the same color. So we'll just do black. We'll do black for this one. Okay, so then step number 18 is going to be the handle for the broom. So let's go ahead and we'll just start doing some stitching on the broom now. Then we're going to go over to the yellow. I've got the yellow that matched my fabric, so that I knew what I used, but all right, get the black. Okay, so now we're going to stitch out the handle here. And I may pause the video for a moment while this is stitching because it's going to take a couple minutes, because I remember it had like a little decorative fill in it. So it may take a few minutes to stitch out. And then I will come back and we will continue on with the bottom of the broom. Okay, so now we're ready to do the placement line for the broom, the bristles of the broom. And I went ahead and put in my number 1300 golden basket that matches my yellow or gold fabric here. So the first step then, of course, is going to be our placement line. We're going to do an applique piece first, and then we'll do the chenille pieces. So I'll get my first piece ready, and they're all matching in that kind of gold color. And then we're going to put this down over that little placement line, and it's right here. You probably can't see it too well. It's right here. And then I'm going to lay this piece over it, just one piece. And then it's going to tack it down, and we'll trim this. I love chenille. I didn't think I'd ever like chenille, and I've got a new tool I'm going to show you too and see what works the best. Lynn got me a different chenilling tool. Okay, so now we're going to trim this close to the stitches. And then it's going to do a pretty little decorative fill. Now, as you noticed, I changed my color, and I'm going to do the whole thing in the same color. The little motif stitch that goes around it could show if you had left like a black thread or something in it. So I usually change my thread for all the steps of an applique, because then I don't have to worry about that motif stitch if it catches me and it's like, oh, it's a motif, not a satin stitch. So I usually always match my fabric. So there's a little bit of a dip here. So I get my cord in my way here. There's a little bit of a dip in here. I was gonna trim up just a little bit. Okay. All right. So then the next step will be the little motif stitch that goes around this applique part. So we'll do that, and then we're going to start working on the chenille. This is a really cute little decorative stitch. They usually do these actually on their chenille pieces. They put a decorative stitch around it. Instead of a satin stitch. Makes it look really nice. Yeah, so I remember when I did this the first time, I thought, oh, I had to look at the block, and I'm like, oh, wait a minute, I need to get this quilted before I do my broom. So it made me really stop and look at the instructions and see what I was doing here. All right. So there is the decorative stitch around my broom. So now we're going to take the other three little pieces, and these are the chenille pieces. So I'm going to take these three little pieces and I'm going to layer them together. And then we're going to lay these on top. And I'm just going to leave that golden basket in there, the color. Thread out of the way. And we're going to lay these over the top of this. Okay. Then what it's going to do is it's going to do a tack down line through all three layers. And it's kind of a basting stitch. Okay. Oops, looks like I got a little bit of a thread shred. I may have to do that. I think it'll be okay. But I am going to, looks like my thread decided it was going to shred just a little bit. So pull a little bit down and rethread the machine. Okay. Alright. So then that is the basting line. We're not going to trim quite yet. The next step is going to be the chenille lines. So it's going to do some chenille lines. And I'm going to leave the golden basket in for that. And these are going to be like little triple stitches that are going to hold this down. I got some little tails, huh? Trim those and get them out of the way. And then I think it's going to have us do the little you know, the little string, the little thing that holds the broom together at the top before we do the trimming. Yes. So we're gonna switch back to black here for a minute before we do the trimming. So it's going to do that little thing across the top of the broom there. Get this switched back to black. Okay. And then we'll do that little piece. And then we're going to do the trimming. Got an old fly out here bothering me. Okay. So there's that part. So we're actually done with the sewing part. So now it says to trim the 3 layers of fabric close to the basting stitch line. Do not trim the basting stitch. and then we're going to remove the basting stitches. So this is how we do chenille. Now this one is a little different than I usually do chenille, because I usually use my chenille tool, but this one I won't be able to. I think I used either a seam ripper or a scissors for this one. So we're going to trim through, and just be careful, don't trim through the base fabric, okay? So we're just going to trim close to these basting stitches all the way around. This was a very small piece of chenille, so we're going to trim across the top here. I'm trimming all 3 layers. Down this way. And I didn't get very close on that one, but it'll be fine. Oops, there we go. This one was kind of ravelly fabric too. Alright. Trim across the bottom. Okay. And then it says to remove the basting stitches. So I'm going to remove the basting stitches with a seam ripper, if I can find my seam ripper. And you just take those little stitches out all along the top here, the outside edge I should say, and I may turn the camera off for a minute because it does take me a minute to do this. Sorry, I'm not very fast at ripping the basting stitches. So let me pause the camera for a minute while I do this, because then I'll come back and show you what I have to do next. Alright, so I've got the basting stitches removed. So you can see I took them out of the sides here, and you can lift these little sides up, okay, and along the top. So, and I also took them out of this little middle section, so you can see those little triple stitches real well now. And then what you want to do is we're just gonna cut up through these 2, and because there's not much for trimming. So normally when I do my chenille, I use my little chenille roller and go up through the chenille strips, but this one's so small I just used a pair of scissors. So I'm going to use my little Ginger pointy scissors, and I'm going to do this. Now the trick with this, you have to be very careful not to get the last, that's why I like the little chenille tool. I always have to be real careful that I don't get the bottom layer of the fabric as well. So I'm going to turn this around, and I'm just going to trim up through the center there. Make sure I'm not catching that as high as I can go, and then we'll do this side. Just up, there's just a couple little slits we're going to make. Okay, so make sure hopefully I didn't cut through my bottom. Nope, I think I did okay. Alright. I think I did it. Alright, so there's what we're going to chenille. So we got some little loose stuff going on there, okay? Now, Lynn got me this new tool, so let's try it. I have 2. This has always been my favorite chenilling tool. It is a serrated plastic knife, and this works real well for this. But Lynn got me this cool tool. It's like a brush that has these hard bristles on it. So let's try this and see how this does. So I haven't really tried. Ooh, that works really nice. And it's a little bit easier than the knife. So now we got all these little strands. So what I do then is after I kind of chenille it, I just kind of trim it up so that it's beautiful. Hey, that little brush works really well. This is not much for chenille, so you don't have to get too rambunctious with it. And this particular fabric was quite ravelly, so it ravels. So then I just kind of trim it up so it looks nice, you know, so it doesn't look so ratty. And then if it's not quite the way, I'm going to take my knife just a little bit on this one side. Here we go. I love the plastic knife. I've been using it. I found it by accident because I didn't have anything to chenille. They always say to use an emery board. Well, it doesn't really work very well, and it's not rough enough. And we were at the store sewing one day before the pandemic, and all we had was these serrated knives. So I just grabbed some serrated knives for everybody, and everybody was like, oh my gosh, look at this beautiful chenille. So that's what I've always used. But the brush works really nice too. Okay. So what I do then is I just kind of trim it up so it looks nice. Yeah, it looks pretty good. So there's our little, might have to take my little tape roller to the top, but there's our little chenille for our broom. So there's the broom. Isn't that cute? So we did the chenille, And now I'm going to move the camera over and we'll get this one trimmed, and then we'll be ready for the last 2 border blocks. Okay, so this one also needs to be 4.5 by 4.5, and again, in the instructions it says to use the tack down line around the outside edge and just use a regular ruler and trim it. I'm just going to go ahead and use my pop rulers again. So there's my 4.5 inch one. I'm going to drop the 6.5 inch one on too, just to help me hold it. And oops, there we go. Get that lined up, and then we're going to do the same thing. We're going to start over here. Again, I'm left-handed, so I'm starting on the right-hand side. And then I'm going to turn it. It works for me better to work towards me. Got a little spot maybe didn't cut there. There we go. Turn it around. But the rotating mats, if you don't have one of these, this is like the best thing ever. And I love this one because it actually has like a Lazy Susan on the bottom, so that it rotates very well. So there's our block. So I just went around each side, and there's our block, our broom block. So now we're ready for the last 2 border blocks, and those are just going to be quilted, and we're going to use the method number 2 for the quilting. So we'll go ahead and get those. I'll get ready for those, and I'll be back in a moment, and we'll finish up those border blocks. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and quilt the 2 border blocks. So they have to be quilted too, but there's no piecing or no embroidery on those. So it's block number 6, this little one here. So that's this one, and it is let's see, 6 finishes 2 by 4. So it was 2.5 by 4.5 that you cut it. So this one's cut to the right size already with the seam allowance. And then number 9 was the longer one, and it finishes 2 by 8, so it's cut 2.5 by 8.5. Okay, so I'm just going to do these actually both in the same hoop. I've got a 6 by 10 hoop out here. I've got plenty of room, and so I'm just going to bring both of the designs in and do them both. And then I think I might have done them, let's see, I think I did them in different quilting design. So all we're going to need is a quilting design. Okay, so in the border number 6, which was the littler one, I did the chevron. So let's go ahead and bring in our quilting designs here for these. So I'm going to go ahead and bring in the chevron 1. So I have to get my quilting designs. Chevron 1, and I want these to go horizontally across it this time. So I'm going to do chevron 1. Where is it? Here. There we go. Chevron 1. And this one I said was 2 by 4. That's the finished size. So here's the 2 by 4, but it's going to be in the hoop this way. So I want them to run along this way. So I'm going to choose the one that looks like it's vertical, but it's actually going to be horizontal. So we're going to choose this one. Okay. 2 by 4, and because it's going to come in, as you can see, it comes in this way, and my fabric's going to lay this way, so the chevrons will be running along there. Okay, sometimes it's better to visualize it, isn't it? Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and just set that one, and I'm going to go ahead and edit, and I'm just going to move it over a little bit so that it's kind of over to the side a little bit. Okay. And then I'm going to go ahead and bring in my second one that I wanted for my longer one. And the longer one, border 9, was 2 by 8. And I used Halloween 1 for that. So we're going to hit add. And then I'm going to go ahead and find that one. So my quilting designs, Halloween, what did I say? Halloween 1. That's the one with the spider webs. So we're going to use Halloween 1, and whoops, find the H's, Jan. There we go. Halloween 1, and then that one I said was 2 by 8. Yes, 2 by 8. So we're going to go and find the 2 by 8. So that's right here. Okay, it's right up towards the top. So 2 by 8. And then I'm going to set that one, and we're going to move it over a little bit. Okay, so we should have plenty of room. I put a 6 by 10 hoop in here, so I'm going to go, we should have plenty of room to put them kind of a little ways away from each other. I'm going to touch this one and move it over just a little bit, so we just have a little space in the middle. Okay, so they're only going to be about 5 inches wide, so we should be okay just with a little space in the middle. Okay, all right, so I'm going to hit okay. I've got both of them in there. And I'm going to quilt both of these with black thread. So you can do them in separate. You can leave them separate. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and hit embroidery for both of these. And I've got my 6 by 10 hoop already over here. I'll turn this around. And with my no-show mesh in here. Okay. What I'm going to do is they make these all the same color. For each step, and I would like to not have to change the, I don't want to have to do just one and then do the other one. If you were doing them in separate colors, I would leave them as they are right now, but I don't want to do that. I'm going to do both of them in the same color. So I'm going to go to my layout, and I have a color sort on my machine. Not all of the machines have that. It looks like 3 little spools like this, so a lot of the newer machines have this now. So I'm going to hit that button. And when I hit layout again, you can see that now all of the outlines are going to be together. All of the tack down lines are going to be together for the batting, and so on, so that it'll do both of them at the same time. Okay, so depending on if you're going to do them in separate colors, I tell you to do them individually, because then you can change your color. But then if you're going to do them in the same color like me, that color sort is a really fun way to do this, because then you don't have to change, you don't have to stop so often. Okay, so what we're going to do then is we got them all set up. What we're going to do, go back over here. I've got my color sort on. So the first thing it's going to do, and I've got my black thread in my machine, and it was just regular bobbin thread. So it's going to do the 2 placement lines for the batting first. I've got a spool up here that has just a little catch on it, so I kind of have to watch it. I'm going to stop this just for a minute, because I must not have had this real tight. There we go. Okay, should be fine. But I've got a spool that every now and then one of the Brothers spools has that little, I think maybe my cutter's not quite working. I may have to stop for a moment and clean my cutter, because I noticed it's doing something weird, so we may do that. Sometimes this happens. So if your cutter is not cutting quite right, often it'll cause you to have some pulling, like mine was, and I might have a piece of thread in my cutter. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to pull this off. So I might as well just leave this right in the video, right? Sometimes it's good that we have these things happen. So I'm going to take this out. I'm going to take my bobbin out. Now I have a luminaire, so my machine has a 1-piece needle plate, so the whole thing comes out. And see, I've got thread over here. I can see it. You may not be able to see it too well, but I can sure see it. So I'm going to clean this out and get that out of there, because that's what's causing my problem. And the cutter's back here, like right back here along the feed dogs, and so I've noticed that if I get a piece of thread in there, then it wants to pull, and it's not sewing quite right. So it's very important to keep that cutter. I clean my cutter, but I think I just need another blade. For some reason my blade must be dull. I do use my machine a lot though. So when your blade gets dull, then you'll have a little bit of problems with. I still got some threads down in there. I don't use canned air very often, but when I get threads stuck down here, I need to, if I put a little air in there, I can usually see this one that popped up. So we'll just do a little bit of maintenance here and make sure, oops, there's another little piece right there. Okay, I think I got them. All right, let's see if that helps. And then we'll rethread the machine. So anytime anything weird happens, just rethread, put your bobbin back in. So I'm going to put my bobbin case back in here. And put my needle plate back on, make sure I got it in there correctly and all the way flat. And then I did a nice video on Shields Live about maintenance a couple of weeks ago, so it would have been in July. So if you haven't seen that video, that's a good video to watch because it's just some basic maintenance on your machine and working with, you know, putting it back together correctly and putting your bobbin cases in correctly. So if you haven't seen that, go watch that on Shields Live. It's on the Shields Sewing Center Facebook page, or it's on my YouTube channel under Shields Live. Okay, so we'll get that back in, then I'm going to rethread my machine. Alright, let's see if it's happier now. Alright, so we got our placement lines on there, and now we need to put the batting down and sew our batting down. Second here. Okay, so let me lay the batting. And I'm just going to lay the batting because remember, I did a color sort. I'm going to lay the batting so that it covers both of these, and we're going to cut them both out at the same time. I'm going to throw my fabrics on the floor, so I'll move them over a little bit here. So I'm going to lay the batting over both pieces here. So I've just got my chunk of batting here. And then I'm going to sew out step number 3, which is going to... Oops, a second here. It should be step number 2. Sorry, my machine must have... No, it's right. This is step number 3, and it looks like step number 3 because I had the... Remember, I had the... Oops. Is it going to catch? I wonder if I need a needle. Now you get to watch me change a needle, too. Because it's not catching. Let's just change the needle, too. You know, sometimes it's good that this stuff happens. Now, this is actually step number 2, but it looks like 3 in my machine because, you know, I did the combining. So let's put a needle in, too. Because it's very unusual it doesn't catch, so something is not happy. So we'll take the needle out, put a new one in. Made a funny little noise when it started, so sometimes that's just the needle. Okay, then after you change your needle, needle down, needle up before you try to thread it, okay? So this is step number 2. Alright, so I have to back up to the beginning of it, and then we'll try it again. We will get these done yet, guys, I promise. But it's good that I leave these things in the videos because sometimes things happen, you know, when you're sewing and it's like, what is causing that? So it's just better that we just leave it in, you know? So I don't think it's still going to catch. Nope. Alright, so I think I am going to stop the camera for a moment and find out why my thread's not catching. So give me a moment. I will be right back. Okay, so I am on step number 2. Sorry about that. What it was is I needed to put a new bobbin in. So probably I have a pre-wound here, and what happens is sometimes you'll get a little rough spot on the bobbin, and it just won't, and you can see my bobbin's getting pretty empty. So it just wasn't grabbing the bobbin thread quite right. And I must have had a little sharp spot on my bobbin. So that's the other thing that can happen. You know, I check the needle. That's the first thing I always check. And then obviously, you know, I take the bobbin in and out, and I rethreaded the machine, but it was actually the physical bobbin. And that can happen if you wind your own bobbins too with the regular, you know, brother bobbins here. Make sure I hang on to that. I have a little bit of a small spot. So these regular brother bobbins, every now and then I'll have one of those happen. That'll happen with these too. You'll get just a little rough spot. Sometimes you can't even see it, but you can feel it, and then it won't, it doesn't like to pick up the thread. But it took me a minute to get that figured out, so I figured you didn't need to sit there and watch me figure all that out. So then I could just tell you what the problem was. So I got a new bobbin, new needle, and everything's happy now. Alright, so this was step number 2 on both of them, so that it did my tack down line for my batting. So we're going to trim the batting now. And I may have to take this out so I can get to it. It's a little hard for me to get up to the top here, so get this out of the way. Let's see if I can get in between here. Now this is going to be method number 2 for the quilting. Now when you do these quilting, if you need the instructions, make sure you print out the instructions for the quilting because it tells you all these little steps, okay? But for method number 2, we have to get the batting on there, obviously. But remember, the block is already the size we want it. And this is not the preferred method, but there's some blocks that they make, and like if they do pieced blocks in the quilts or in the pillows, that we actually piece them physically, you know, by sewing them together, they also turn out the right size. So this is how you would quilt those, any of those also. Now this pillow didn't have any pieced blocks in it, but some of the pillows do, and some of the quilts do. All right, so I've trimmed both of these down. Okay, pull my camera back just a little bit. Okay. Now, at this point, we're ready to do the, put the fabric in. But we're not going to put the fabric in first because we need to know where to put it first. Because remember, these are the exact size. So I'm going to stitch out step number 3 on both of these. That is going to be my fabric placement line, and we normally would sew that out also. But this is much more important because we have to know exactly where to put our fabric. So we're going to get step number 3 on here for both of them, and then we'll attach the fabric. But again, this would be the same way you would do blocks that you would piece, you know, pinwheel blocks or whatever we piece traditionally. Also, and I know that like the Easter pillow, I did the Easter bench pillow, and there was quite a few piece blocks in that, and this is how, and then some like filler blocks, so they were all quilted this way. Okay, so we have the placement lines for the fabric on both of these. All right, so what we're going to do is this piece is the same size as this placement line, see? So what we're going to do, just like we did for the borders and flanges on Sweet Land of Liberty, I'm going to take my fabric glue stick, and this is my Sew Line glue stick, and I'm just going to run a bead of glue between the batting and that line all the way around. Do the small one first. And then I'm going to place this fabric right in that line and glue it down to the stabilizer. All the way around. You want it nice and centered. Okay, do the best you can. I had a little bit of a ravel on this one side, so you might be able to see some of the glue. Okay, so get that all on there. And with the glue, I don't need to tape, because they in the instructions they tell you to tape, and I don't tape because I use the fabric glue stick, and that works really well. Okay, so there's the first one. I think I've got it pretty good. There's a little bit of raveling on the edges of those, so okay, so there's the first one, and now let's do the second one. So we'll do this longer one also, and this works real slick for this. So go up along here, top, and it's so much faster than taping everything. I don't really like tape. I use it for, there's certain things you have to use tape for. So I'm going to do the same thing with this one, get it lined up in my lines, and pull it up to the top, and get it in the lines up here, and then I'm just going to push it down along the sides. There we go. It's all lined up. And then it really holds still, and you don't have to worry about it moving on you. Okay? Give me a second here. This one just needs to be pushed down a little bit more. Okay. So there's our 2 blocks. And I've still got my black thread in there. And now we are going to skip the next step, because the next step would actually just sew along the edge, and we don't want to take the chance of disturbing this. So I'm going to skip the next step because we don't need the tack down line, because it's going to go sew on the same line that it did before. But we have it glued down, but I just don't want to disturb that, so I'm going to go ahead and skip that next step. And then we'll go on to the quilting. So we're just going to quilt it now. Okay? All right. So now we're going to go on to the quilting. I'm just going to kind of watch it to make sure it doesn't move or anything. It shouldn't. They stay pretty well when they're glued. And now it's going to do the quilting. Now remember, this is already the right size, so all we have to do is just, when we take these out of the hoop, I'm just going to trim around with scissors along that placement line, and then we already know that it's the right size. You could also use your rotary cutter if you want. Okay, so there's that first one, and that one's with the chevron, and then I did the other one with the little spider webs. We'll do this one, and I'm going to do the same thing, just kind of watch, make sure it doesn't move. This one kind of goes along the edges anyway because it's spider webs, so there we go. So it's going, and it's going to quilt this one with the spider webs. And again, these are like, what, 2.5 by 4.5 and 2.5 by 8.5 unfinished. Finished, they were 2 by 8 and 2 by 4. I like the spider web. This is one of my favorite Halloween ones because it's got the spider webs on it. I thought it was cool. And this one is the one that goes down. I don't know if you can see it. If I hold this up while this is stitching, this is the one. This is the block that goes underneath the hat, and that's the quilting that we used on the hat. So, and the bugs and hisses. So that's why I did it in the spider webs. So they were all the same. They kind of all go together, those blocks. So, and it has little spiders on it. And I sometimes do use my rotary cutter when I trim these, but I often just get the scissors out and trim them that way. Get my fingers out and get it ready to do that. But just skip the tack down line, the fabric tack down line, because you don't want to disturb the edges of your fabric. So. But this is the method that has to be used for the blocks that are cut the same size that you still need quilting on. So the plain blocks and some of the piece blocks will be done this way. Looks pretty good. I like this fabric, the one with the little squiggles on it. They have some really cool basic fabrics. Do another little spider. So anyway, I did get my machine fixed. It was the physical bobbin, so that's another thing to check. And like I said, it can happen. Even with the regular brother bobbins, you'll get one that'll just have a little sharp spot on it. And I get it more maybe with the pre-wounds because the quality of the bobbin is not as, physical bobbin is not as good. So that is the other thing to check, and that's what my problem was. Because you can see it's sewing just fine now. So the first thing I always check though is the needle, because sometimes needles are just, and I've been having a lot of thread in my cutter, so I try to keep the underneath of my machine real clean because it likes to catch. So alright, I think we're about done with the quilting. I think it's doing the last, doing the last spider web. I like this design. All right, one more side, and I think it's done. Isn't that neat? And we got them both done at the same time, so that makes it very fast. Okay. And then I'll take these out of the hoop. And like I said, if you want to take it over to your rotary cutter, you can do that. I'm just going to trim them out with my scissors. I'll just take my scissors and trim them out with and I'm just going to kind of make sure I kind of go right along, with that placement line that we put in, that we stuck it in. And I know they're going to be the right size. And you can always check them over on your rotary mat with your cutter too. I had a little bit of fraying on the edges of these. This was a scrap, and I know I was very close to being not big enough. So I know there was a little bit of fraying on that one. Okay, and then I'll get this one. And there are our border blocks. So now got all of the blocks done, and next time for for part number 5, we'll quilt the borders and the flanges, and then put the pillow together. So this is a fun pillow. I had so much fun with this one. I love Halloween stuff, and this one was just adorable. Alright, so here's my, oh, just about got it. Scissor got stuck. There we go. So there's my other border. So there's my border with the spider webs and the one with the chevron. So these are all done and ready to be put into the pillow. And next time we will do for part 5, we'll do the live. We're going to do that live, the flanges and the borders. So thank you so much for joining me for part 4 of this, for the rest of the blocks. And I will see you next time, and we'll get those borders and flanges done. Thanks, everybody.